Yum, yum.
Greg here from Pixel Fondue. So William has been doing a bunch of Keyshot videos lately, and there's a really cool node in Keyshot called Bubbles, which lets you put bubbles in liquids. Admittedly, I think it's pretty awesome. And I'm going to show you how to do it in Modo. I'm going to be using a kit called the Dex particle packing system, and I'll put the link below. If you don't already have it, it's a really cool particle system which allows you to pack particles so they don't overlap, and you can also pack them in a volume, like a liquid, and have them not penetrate the outside or penetrate the glass. And so it's super useful for this sort of thing. It has a bunch of controls, and so that's what we're going to do in this video. So let's just jump over to Modo, and I've got a sort of a beer mug here with the Pixel Fondue logo on it. I'll do some materials later. In fact, I'll do some rendering in Octane to show you how to render overlapping glass and liquid in Octane with render priorities, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's just start with making a liquid. Now, you can make a cylinder, import a coffee cup, or do whatever sort of mug you want. I'm just going to use this one, and I'm going to just create some liquid in it by just sort of expanding my selection here, and then maybe going to this line, we'll do right there, maybe one more. So it's kind of a full mug there. I'm going to Control-C copy those polygons in for a new mesh item, and Control-V paste it. We'll just call this beer, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to hide the pint glass and the label now. And you'll see that the polygons are facing inward, because that's just the inside of the glass. We're going to flip them by pressing F. And then I'm going to double click this top loop here, hit P to create a polygon. It's got a sort of a weird normal there. This was imported this is an FBX item that I imported. So let's go to the surface normal here and delete it. We don't need those in Modo. We get the normal information typically from the materials, although you can also bake them into the verts, but we don't need it here. Here I'm going to I'm just going to bevel this in a little bit and maybe right click and drag and get some loops there. And this last one here, I'm going to go to the edge tab and say fill quads and click fill with grid pattern, just get a nice grid pattern there. And then maybe I'll add another loop near the top here and maybe one more near the bottom, just to actually don't go into the bottom, just at the top. So when I turn this into a sub D, it looks a little bit nicer. In fact, why don't I actually bevel this, edge bevel it, and say sharp, and then just bevel it out a little bit to get a loop on each side. So when I sub D it, we get sort of a nice, sharper edge there. So one of the things we need to do, I'm just going to unsub D back to polygons. You'll see that, it's filling up the pint glass, but all these polygons are in the same place because we just flipped them, copied them and flipped them. And those will create render errors. And the way you render refractive materials in pretty much any ray tracer is you need to actually go to the liquid here and just scale it out a little bit so it intersects with the glass. And I'll link a video by Silverwing, who just does awesome Octane videos. And he explains it really well. He actually has a little PowerPoint, and it's worth watching if you actually do these types of renders very often. I'm just gonna scale it up a little bit. You can see it's just sort of intersecting right there a little bit with the edge. Now this method should work in both Modo and like Octane rendering, but we're gonna do this in Octane later, but something like that. And then I'm probably just going to press M with my beer selected and make a beer material. And right now we'll just do a really quick beer material. So I'm going to hide the glass at this point. We don't really need to see it for the particle packing. So for the beer material, I actually use the form presets a lot. So I just get a base glass, base metal, base plastic. Down here you'll see these are presets I created. And there's a whole video on Pixel Fondue on how to do this. Just type form presets in the little search thing and on the Pixel Fondue channel, and you'll see the video for this. They're useful all over the place, but they're nice for materials because I could just go to the base glass and it'll just change all the values for me, right? Then I can go in here to like the transparent color and change this to sort of a beer color like that. Now we'll change all these materials in Octane. This is really just for visualization in the advanced viewport here. Okay, so let's look at what we need to do in terms of particle packing. So let me open up a schematic here. And the Dex kit comes with a bunch of different nodes. We want the volume distribution node. And when you bring that in, it's going to bring in this ray domain node as well. And the rate domain node is basically just an area it's searching, right? And so it's sort of like a texture locator, basically, for the volume, right? You want to enclose the volume. And so we've got that in, and we want to drag both of these over to the schematic, like this. And we're going to add a replicator. So I can just press Tab here to bring up my window here to add items. And so we'll add a replicator. And then let's just connect the particle system, which we haven't really set up yet, to the replicator. And then we're going to add a bubble. And now with Dex, it expects all of the initial prototypes to fit within the basic boundaries of a 1 unit, sort of a 1 meter cube. This is something, let me just hide the ray domain here and turn on. We'll just go to wireframe. See this pink cube here? Just kind of gives you a guide and how that's worked out. So if I add a unit, just hold shift and click and make a unit sphere, a 1 meter sphere, that'll do it for us. Press M, call it bubbles. And we've got a bubble material. Right now, let's just make it something like a magenta, so we see it really well. We'll change it later. All right, so there's a bubble material. Let me just go back to the advanced viewport here. And like I said, you don't want your bubbles scaled down. You want them to fit within this this unit, one sort of this pink box here. So if I drag my sphere in here and I plug it into the replicators, or the prototype like that, you'll see it sort of filling up this box. Now, volume distribution by default is just set to a preview mode. Let me just turn it off. And you see this sort of, again, this sort of pink box there. That's just sort of the bounding box that you want to keep your prototype inside. It's just a 1 meter box. And I can't tell you how important it is. Like, you want to scale your prototype to be in the box, and don't scale it in item mode, right? Scale the polygons down to that size. So if you want to have a bunch of floaty gummy bears in there, you want your gummy bear to like fit, as close to the corners of this box as you can, right? That's how you get an initial size for this particle packing. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at, let's hide our sphere here, and we'll just, we've got I'm just going to go ahead and hide the ray domain so we don't have to see it blocking our beer. And our volume distribution needs one more input. It needs the volume mesh that is trying to fill up, and that's going to be our beer. So we put this over here, we plug that into the volume mesh, and then on our volume distribution, we set the sample mode to raycast and pack, and it's going to fill it up. So you notice this is not what we want, and we've got this one big particle here, so something's wrong in our setup. And what it is we need to adjust the ray domain, again, the area that it's searching for that volume, down a little bit. So let me just go into wireframe mode here, and you'll see the ray domain is really big, right? It just starts off at 1 meter, but we just have like a pint glass. So we need to actually scale this down a fair amount. So we'll scale down the ray domain. You can start to see the little green particles appearing inside that mug there. So we'll just kind of get it on top like that, scale it up a little bit. Now we've got some particles packing in there, but the particles are way too big. So let's just go back to the advanced view. I'm going to hide the ray domain, and selecting my volume distribution, let's shrink the size of our particles, right? Like way down, like maybe 0.005 and 0.001, something like that, right? So now we've got a lot of particles in there. Not a lot, but we got some particles in there. You'll notice that it's sort of this weird sort of stratified look to it. And that's this distribution algorithm, the blue noise algorithm, which gets it more of a, think of like packing something in a crate, or like marbles in a crate or something. It's sort of a more organized look to it. We want something a little more random, so like a white noise one, or this other blue noise Hammersley one gives a nice sort of like more randomized look to it. And again, our bubbles are still way too big, so I'm going to bump those down again, like 0.003 to 0.005, like a half a millimeter or something. And you'll notice that they're all the same size, and that's because our chaos value defaults to 0, which tries to keep everything at the max size. So we introduce more chaos, it like distributes them more towards that the distribution log, the minimum size all the way to the maximum size. So if we go to 1, we've got all kinds of particles in there from minimum to maximum, right? I can probably just do 1 millimeter for the minimum. And let's add more particles, so we can do 500 or 1,000 or whatever. You can also, this has channel hall set up in it, so I can also just, I think I may need to reset the channel hall, so load channel hall defaults, but you can just press C for channel hall, and as usual, right click is going to change the number, so I can just right click and drag, right? And I can right click up and down the multiplier, that's this number right here, which is really going to kind of fill it up like that. So something, I don't know how many, probably not a ton, something like this maybe. Looking pretty decent there, I think. And then if I look at the top, we'll see that they're sort of going out of the boundary of the beer, right? And it's going to be intersecting the glass, and we don't want that. It's going to have all kinds of weird refraction errors. The bubbles have to stay in the beer. And so there's a real easy way to do that. You see this right here. The volume constraint mode is set to shrink. We're going to set it to remove, and it's just going to pop all those back inside our beer there. So keep in mind our beer is expanded a little bit into intersecting the glass. So if you have anything really near the edge, it may intersect the glass. So you have to be a little bit careful, but I think we're okay here. We'll certainly find out when we render. And if that's the case, we can just tweak things a little bit. Okay, so let's do one more adjustment here. I noticed that, like, the bubbles are all the same sort of size distribution, bottom to top. Typically bubbles in the bottom are a little bit smaller, and they grow a little bit as they get bigger. So let's do that. Let's just add a linear fall off over here in the item list, and then I'm going to drag look at this in the viewport here. Let's change this using minute props. Just press space. Let's change it to Y. Let's make it like way smaller, like 0.1 or something. Let's move it up like this to the top, and then I want to just invert it so it's actually kind of like that, right? And then when I plug this into my volume distribution node, I don't need this open anymore here. So I just plug it into this fall off slot, just like that, and it affects the scale, just like that. So I can move it down. You can see like the scale sort of going from 0 to 100 on this fall off here. One thing I may do is I'm going to increase the size of this fall off a little bit just by pressing C for channel hall. And then middle mouse will increase the range a little bit. Just move it down, something like this. Middle mouse again, kind of like that. And then I'm going to change the easing. I don't want it to go all the way to 0. I'm just going to middle mouse drag up, and you can see them bubbles appearing here. So maybe like half as small at the bottom, something like that. So that looks pretty good. We got a decent amount of bubbles in there, and they don't intersect. And there's decent size variation, and I think we got it right. You need to do some materials and some other things. We might do, let's do one more thing. Let's put some along the top. Let's do a separate distribution and do them along the top. So I'm going to just hide my replicator right now, and I'm going to hide this volume distribution here. We don't really need that anymore. I'm going to grab the top polygons like this. Let's go to VMap mode, and let's create a weight map here. Let's just call it, we'll just call it weight. That's fine. There's 100% right there on the top. And then let's do a Dex surface distribution. So again, Dex, and this time we want surface distribution. And we'll take our, again, the surface we have a ray projection node, which again acts sort of like a texture locator. You can change this from planar to box or cylinder. We'll just go to like planar. I'm gonna move it up, and I'm gonna scale it in because I'm just shooting at the top of that of the beer there, right? We're just going to get some more bubbles on the top that have sort of settled there. So that's going to be shooting down. Let's drag both of these guys over to the schematic, and we'll set another schematic up just like the one above. So our surface is also going to be our beer. It's the volume for this one, and it's the surface for this one, like that. And then we need another replicator. So let's call this first replicator volume. And then I think I can just Control D duplicate it and unhook the particle source from volume distribution, keep the sphere here, and plug in the new particle source for the surface distribution like that. And let's change our surface distribution sizes just like we did before. Let's turn chaos to 1. Let's bump this down to make it maybe a little bit bigger on the top, like 0.005, 0.002, like that. And then change the sample mode to raycast and pack. So now it's splatting them down there. And let's turn on our replicator here so we can see the spheres on the top. We'll call this surface, like that, like this. And we've got some bubbles on top of those. Are pretty big. Maybe we'll make them a little smaller, maybe 0.002, 0.01, something like that. Bump up the point count a lot, pretty bubbly on top, and up the multiplier like this. And so the weight map, I'm actually going to grab this edge here and just Alt-1 to convert to verts, and then just expand about a step or so, maybe 2 steps, and go over to the weight map and right click and say clear. I'm just shrinking down that weight map a little bit, right? And I'm going to use that weight map to, scale these bubbles. So there's different scaling along the edges. Actually, it's interesting. There should be, well, let's do this first. I may change this a little bit in a second. Let's do that. And then we'll just go over here to the surface distribution. And there should be a slot for weight map. We'll just say weight. And then there should be something for weight map influence, weight map blend, turn that to 1. And so now we just took the bubbles away with the weight map. So the bubbles only appear where this weight map is. But I think we need to expand it out a little bit. So let's put some here. And I think actually I'm gonna add another loop right here. So let's get both of these loops and Shift W for the weight tool. Yeah, weight 0%. Oh, we want 100%. And just click. Yep. Okay, so we've got some weight there. And let me slide this in. We just don't want these to intersect with the glass, right? Although we do want them near the edge, like that. Okay, looks better. Okay, so we got some bubbles on top. Looks good. We've got some bubbles. We'll hide the beer here and turn on the other replicator. We got some bubbles going up. I would say let's adjust the bubbles on top just a little bit more by adding one more fall off. I'm going to add a radial fall off. And I always end up doing more on these tutorials than I planned, but that's fine. So the radial fall off, just press C for channel haul, and then I think it's middle mouse, left mouse to scale it down. And then we'll move it up. Scale it down a little bit like that, and then let's get the this is going to go from, so if I add this radial fall off here to the fall off, it's going to have sort of the opposite effect. It's going to keep them in the middle. We want them actually more concentrated towards the edges. Bubbles kind of cling to the edges, so we'll invert it. And then again, I'm going to adjust the easing. I don't want it to be just nothing in the middle, right? So the easing, I'm sort of annoyed when we get these single graph lines. You want to do like the medium view. It should really default to the medium view. Again, I'm just going to up this a little bit in the middle so we're seeing something here in the middle, right? But just not as much, like that maybe, something like that. A little bit smaller, not so much in the middle. So looks pretty good. We can increase the density a little bit more if you want to. But yeah, I'm not going to tweak this too much. Whoops. We can just go back to the multiplier maybe and go like 6 or something. Okay, so we've got bubbles and we've got beer and we've got a glass and a label. So let's kind of put all this together. Let's hide all these fall offs and dex nodes and go back to my advanced view here. And I don't think I need that schematic open anymore. Okay, let's change the material on the glass really quick. So I think I have that in here. The glass, again, I'll just use my little preset to go to basic glass. Again, this is just diffuse to 0%. In color, you can put it to black if you want to, but if diffuse is 0, it's fine. Got a refractive index of glass, 1.6. That's typically around, glass is usually around there with the low roughness. And even though we're using Octane, Octane will convert most of these values pretty well. Transparent 100%, color white. Okay, that's fine for that. And then I think our sticker is fine. We can do a rear facing polygon. Is that rear facing or is this? I can't remember if my sticker is one poly. Well, let's hide this. Let's hide the label for now. I'll deal with that in a minute. The back of the label stickers are usually white, so we just want to make sure we surface that correctly. But okay, we've got bubbles. Now our air bubbles the sphere bubbles are going to be a separate color as well, or I'm sorry, a transparent material as well. So let's just go to our bubbles here. I'm going to do the same thing. Just go to my default glass is a quick way of doing it, but I want my refraction just to be 1. They're air bubbles, so they really just have a really almost 1 or almost no refraction at all. The beer should be more like 1.3 or so, like water. And then, yeah, okay, let's do that. Maybe let's get let's just do a basic HDR. And here I'll just go to my presets and grab, go to images and grab like one of the default HDRs that come with Modo so everybody can do it. HDR images. I think Abstract Studio will be fine, nice and bright. So, okay, close that up. All right, let's see what we kind of got here. I'm going to, like I said, actually, I'm going to open up Octane. So let's look through. Let's have the geometry on the left here, and I have it set up so Octane is on the right. And so I'll turn on Octane here. If you don't, so I have this custom Octane set up where I have all the Octane properties right here and I have the Octane panel here. I'm using these extra little fly out panels here, right? And so there's a whole tutorial on Pixel Fondue for this. If this is not how you have Octane set up, I think it's a better way of setting it up than using these layouts up there. And yeah, so let's just hit render, see what Octane gives us. Okay, so really quickly, I'm just gonna adjust my parameters here for the glass and the beer. So I'll add an Octane override on the glass, and we'll just take a peek at this and the schematic really fast. Okay, load that up, and I think we're fine here. It's just clear glass, so we'll keep white as the transmission, and again we'll have the IOR around 1.6 is fine. GGX or GGX energy preserving is what I typically do, and for the BRDF model. And you really don't need to mess with any of these other ones. Like, you do not want thin wall. We'll use that later for the bubbles. And basically without thin wall, it's thinking of the glass, the thickness is like an actual thick medium, right? If you do thin wall, it's sort of like paper thin, like walls with air between, which is what we're gonna do for the bubbles, but not the glass. So this is fine for the glass. And then we'll go over to, you can, again, if you want to like add fingerprints and smudges, you can apply maps to the roughness channel, and you can add a little bit of dispersion if you want, which will make a nice, a more realistic looking glass and some other stuff. But we're just getting the basics here. So for the beer, let's add another Octane override, and here we've got this sort of yellowish color. Really, what you should do is we shouldn't be using the transparent color or transmission color to like color liquids. Let's just turn that back to white. And what we should be using is the medium. So we're going to select the medium here, and we're going to go over here and add a new medium. We're going to do an absorption medium. And this is really what we want to use. We want to use the absorption of this color, this sort of amber, nice amber beer color here. This will be our absorption medium. We just need to turn the density down quite a bit. Something like that is a little bit better, right? Something like that, a little more beer-like. And let's push in a little bit, and then let's go over to our bubbles and add an Octane override on those. And before I do that, I'm going to go back to the glass, and this is sort of the key step here. I'm going to change the priority of the glass to a 1. Like that, and you can see this changed a little bit. Again, you want to make sure, this is by default now, but you want to make sure that nested dielectrics is on right here. You want to make sure that's checked. That's sort of the new way of doing this. If you're rendering in the Modo only renderer, you're going to be rendering without that on, and it's fine not to have priorities. You just need a little bit of overlap. With nested dielectrics, you turn it on, and it doesn't really matter how much overlap there is. If you don't have nested dielectrics, you want as little overlap as possible. Again, watch the Silverwing video. It's really good on this. But with nested dielectrics on, and you turn the priority of the glass to 1, let's turn it back to 0, and you can kind of see. Right now, it's just, where it's overlapped, it's not giving priority refraction to the glass. If you give glass a higher priority, you can see the edges thicken up a little bit. It's going to be, even though as the ray enters the glass and when it encounters the overlapped water, it's just going to keep it glass because that material has a higher priority. And then when it hits the boundary of the inside of the glass, that's when it's going to change to the beer refraction, and you get a little better look here. And then we need to do the bubbles. And so with the bubbles, we're going to turn those to thin wall. And I'm going to bump up their priority to 3. And now we've got some bubbles in here. So now I believe this is correct. Again, I suggest if you think I'm doing this wrong or there's a better way to do it, you can look in the comments section or add something there, or make note of the Silverwing video somewhere. But here we're looking like pretty good. Those look like pretty big bubbles. They're a little bit big. We can always go back and like take our volume distribution here and just change, the bubble size to maybe 0.002, in there, maybe up the multiple a little bit, get some more bubbles in there. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. We can add a little, if you want to get, you can add a little bit of a dispersion coefficient and stuff like that to the glass now if you want to. Let's just get the glass in here and add a little bit of a dispersion coefficient, maybe 0.1 or something like that, to get a little bit of a dispersion up on the edges there. It looks pretty good. Renders pretty quick, and I do think our beer could be like a deeper color. So let me see if I can adjust. That's quite a bit of dispersion in the bottom of the glass. Let me see if I can adjust the beer just a little bit better. Density just a little bit. So we have like a really soft HDR in there. And so this is not ideal lighting for this type of shot. Typically you want some, with glass, you typically want some rim lights, maybe a backlight. You really want to place your reflections really carefully. This is not obviously a lighting tutorial, but I think we get the, I'm just sort of rotating the HDR a little bit, but I think we get the gist here. And then we make this a little bit more, it's a little amber. There we go. Looking a little bit better. Something like this. All right. Yep. We'll just throw a little plane in here, and you can just sort of, I'm just going to hold shift and get a plane to put in the scene. You can see we've got a floor here now, and you can mess with the scene all you want. Let me just kind of keep playing with it. Let me look at the camera right there. So I'm going to grab this back edge and just Z for edge extend and move it up like that. Scale the polygons out a little bit. Grab that edge and just do a bevel. Let's turn our bevel back to rounded. And a little bit of a cyc there, like that. And maybe rotate the HDR a little bit. Now it's not looking like the greatest HDR for our purposes here, but all right, pretty good. We've got some, get a little backlighting on this, maybe somewhere. That's not bad. Yeah, anyway, hopefully that's useful. Shows you how to put some bubbles in a volume, and also we'll just take a look at the top along the surface here at the top. You'd probably want a different material for these guys at the surface so it's more foamy, and also make them a little bit denser and do some stuff like that. But you get the idea. You can separate out your bubbles from the interior ones to the surface ones, and yeah, create some cool liquids. Oh, I forgot about the sticker. We've got a Pixel Fondue label. Let me throw that back on there a little bit. Nice, nice big glass of panda urine. It's kind of what it looks like. All right. Hopefully that was useful to everybody. For the back of the sticker, why don't I just do something with that really quick? Let's take our panda. This label is set to, just turning into an Octane video, RGBA, which is it's not set to diffuse color, it's set to RGBA, which that'll do is it'll put the RGB colors of a 32-bit ping, a ping with an alpha channel. It'll put the RGB colors into the diffuse color, and it'll use the alpha channel as a stencil. And this should actually convert nicely to an Octane material. Just add an Octane override there. I don't think we need these guys. So let me just collapse this and look at the label material here. And what we want to do is just take our diffuse color node, and we want to do a mix, I believe. So a new material. Oh, we don't want to mix material. We actually want to mix texture. Actually, mix material. Well, no, we'll just do mix texture. New texture. Let's do a mix texture here. We can down here, I believe. We really need a search. We just so desperately need a search. Here's a mix. Search for like a search button in these like giant lists of Octane materials. So in the mix, we'll put this is the first texture, and the second texture we'll just do just a new just a diffuse RGB color. We'll just do white. So near the top here, RGBA or RGB color is white. That's fine. Right now it's just mixing 50-50. We want to mix to the front and back of those polygons. And so let's go to a new texture here. I believe down here we've got a polygon side one, and let me just flip them actually. So that way and that way. So polygon side, it'll put one texture on one side and one on the other. So we've got the panda on this side, and we've got the white on this side. So if I hide like the glass and the beer, we see the white texture, and on this side the panda texture. So yeah, that's what we want. And now we have a finished glass of panda urine. Do you like how I finished this? Really finishing strong there. All right, looks cool. Better lighting. We need better lighting. But this is not a tutorial where I screw around with the lighting for 30 minutes, but go for it.
Yum, yum!